And very nice. You said that right, just like I wrote it for you. All right, so we're in Proverbs, and some of you have come in, and some of you are new, some of you have been here before, that's fine. We're making our way, so if you'd turn to Lesson 5, Can't We All Just Get Along? You know, that was made popular by an event that took place out in Los Angeles one time when a guy was pulled out of a truck, and the response was from one of the people that was beaten up, can't we all just get along? And that is the question that the world is asking us, maybe even of the church sometimes. Can't we just get along in the church? Maybe we can, maybe we can't. I don't know, but God wants us to. So let's look at some personal behavior. We have built all day long on the Proverbs. So those of you that are just coming in, you need to realize we've spent a couple of sessions on the introduction, the way that Solomon wrote, the reason he wrote the way he wrote, with one sentence saying something and coming back with the next sentence confirming that, or even adding to it, or even taking away from it. So we've built on all that. Now we're getting into the Proverbs. My goal for you to have these handouts is to take it to your home church and maybe teach it to a ladies class, maybe teach it to a young teenage class, maybe teach it to an adult class on Wednesday evening, and you can make this your own, do whatever you want. Those packets you have in your hand are about 20 to 21 years of gathering information on the book of Proverbs. And so I put a lot of time into this and a lot of typing, and I'm sure there are some mistakes, but if you see one, just scratch it out and correct it, make it your own, and hopefully it'll be a blessing to you in the days to come. All right, on the screen, can't we all just get along? We're going to go through the pages, and on the pages that have the PowerPoint with the 3 little lines on the side might be a place where you want to write some notes. So look at that, and let's look at concerning personal behavior. You know, when it all comes to a head, it's all about how I react to temptation in this life. The things that trigger me, the things that tempt you are the things that only you know about. It could be something visual, it could be something of a touch, whatever it might be. Do you know what the strongest thing in the world that triggers a response in human life today is? Touch is a good guess. And it's right there on the top of the list. A smile's good. Kids and money. Kids and money. We love both of those. But let me just ask you, are you ever triggered by a certain smell? Sorry? A skunk. That triggers us, doesn't it? Run! Yeah. So one of my most proud days is when I took my kids to my mom and dad's house, and they walked in, and right as soon as they walked in the door, they said, "It smells like Grandma and Grandpa." Isn't that good? Yeah. People say that when an event happens in their life that was tragic, and it was a musty, smelly day, and they smell that again, it brings them back to that event. So memories, whatever it is that triggers us, temptations maybe. Solomon says, you be careful concerning temptations. Look at chapter 1, verse 10 on your page. It's under lesson number 5, Principles of Behavior. My son, if sinners entice you, do not consent. It's easy for us to say, but I want to tell you this. Larry and Della have known me over here for many, many years, but my early days as a youth minister, I could sum up in 5 minutes or less. You show me who that teenager runs with, and I'll tell you if they're a good boy or girl. Doesn't take long. Our kids choose friends. And it comes back to this passage. If sinners entice you, do not consent. Who you run with is what you're going to be like. There's an old parable about a little lamb that was just as pure as the driven snow, white, just beautiful. And one day it was out walking with its mother, and they came across some hogs wallowing in the mire. And the little lamb told its mom, said, I'd like to waller in that mire with those pigs. And she turned around, she put her nose in there, and she said, honey, sheep don't waller. Pigs waller. You very rarely see dove flying with ravens. They just don't mix. They're a different kind of bird, aren't they? One's a scavenger. One will eat anything. A dove, we think they're pretty cool. They coo. They sound pretty. For some reason, men like to shoot them in dove season. I don't know. But anyway, I guess they're good to eat. But dove, we seem to be different. We associate them with one word. What is it? A dove and Holy Spirit, or peace. Yeah, peaceful. They're such a peaceful dove. My neighbor has a nest in his backyard, and he actually feeds those doves. And I tell you, they are plump. He is taking great care of those. But we don't get around things that Christians shouldn't be around. Don't consent to that. Chapter 4, verse 14 through 17. Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not proceed in the way of evil men. Avoid it. Don't pass it. Turn away from it and pass on. For they cannot sleep unless they do evil. They're robbed of sleep unless they make someone stumble. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. That is the world today in many ways. So some of you that are in here the first time, I want you to know, Proverbs jumps around. He says something in one chapter, he teaches it in another, and then he comes along later and he says it again. Proverbs is very hard to teach if you just go right through chapter 1, right through chapter 2, all the way down to chapter 31. Very hard to do. So these verses have been put together as a compilation by topic rather than just one chapter at a time. A lot of time, a lot of work went into putting this together. So I hope you'll appreciate that as you study it, as you want to teach it. So my advice, make this your own. Go home and copy it on the copier. Make it your own. It's yours. Use what you want in your Bible classes. Proverbs 21:29, a wicked man displays a bold face, but as for the upright, he makes his way sure. Sometimes a wicked person wants you to believe they've got the world by the tail. They've got everything going their way, but in reality, they do not. But an upright man, he makes sure that his pathway is right. He makes sure he's doing the right thing. Good advice for all of us. 27:12, a prudent man sees evil and hides himself. The knave or the naive proceed and pay the penalty. Those that are just naive, they always say this. Hang with me on this. They always say, it'll never happen to me. I won't get caught. And now they're doing 5 to 10. See? I won't get caught. Why are we so naive to believe this will not happen? My senior year in high school, and I'm going to tell you, is 1972. I graduated in 1972. I have a whole class of boys that I used to run with, and on our senior night of graduation, they got a tent and went out in the woods, and they had all kinds of alcohol. I mean, they said, any kind of alcohol you want. I said, I will not be there. Guess what? Someone told the sheriff they got busted. They all have records today. You see, just don't run with evil. Just don't say, I won't be the one to get caught. It'll be someone else. You stay away from those things, you won't ever get in trouble with it. So we have this idea of temptation that comes to us, but concerning morality. Chapter 4, 18 and 19. But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn that shines brighter and brighter until the full day. Have you ever heard it said that it's darkest just before dawn? Do you realize there is nothing darker than just before dawn? It's the darkest of the night. And then the sun just creeps up ever so little bit, and the sun begins to shine. In the last part, verse 19, the way of the wicked is like darkness. They do not know over what they stumble. You ever gotten up in the middle of the night, thought the pathway was clear, you kicked the end of the bed, you hurt your little toe, and you know it as soon as you hit it, oh, in just a millisecond, it's going to hit my brain. It's going to tell me, oh, that hurt. You know, that little time in between kicking it and then feeling it. He says here, this is what evil does to us. It's going to work on us. They do not know over what they stumble. Who was that? Steve Urkel. Remember Steve Urkel? Did I do that? You remember when he used to say that? Did I get in trouble doing that? That's a Southern impression, okay? But that's what a lot of people do. Oh, did I do that? Yes, you did. And now there's a price to pay for it, so we have to be careful. The dangers of immorality. Listen to chapter 2, verse 16 and 19. To deliver you from strange women, from the adulteress who flatters with words, that leaves the companion of her youth and forgets the covenant of her God. For her house sinks down to death, and her track leads to the dead. None who go to her return again, nor do they reach the paths of life. That sounds like an adulteress to me. Someone who reels a man in, a woman in, and gets what they want and leads people down the path of sin. Now, we're all adults in here, so we know what we're talking about here. Proverbs chapter 5, verses 1 through 14. My son, Solomon's talking to his son or to followers. Give attention to my wisdom. Have your parents ever said, now boy, you listen to your daddy. Daughter, you listen to your mother. That's what we need to do. Incline your ear to my understanding. In other words, listen to me, that you may observe discretion and your lips may reserve knowledge. Listen now, Solomon, he's getting into an area where he's lived. 300 wives, 1,000 concubines. Verse 3, for the lips of an adulteress drip honey, and smoother than oil is her speech. But the end she is bitter as wormwood, sharp as a two-edged sword. Her feet go down to death. Her steps take hold of Sheol. She does not ponder the path of life. Her ways are unstable. She does not know it. Now this, my sons, listen to me. Here's again, he's saying it again. You listen to me and do not depart from the words of my mouth. Keep your way from her and do not go near the door of her house. Or you will give your vigor to others and your years to the cruel one. And strangers will fill with your strength, and your hard-earned goods will go to the house of an alien. And you groan at your final end. When your flesh and your body are consumed, and you say, how have I hated instruction, and my heart spurned reproof? I have not listened to the voice of my teachers, nor inclined my ear to the instructors. I was almost in utter ruin in the midst of the assembly and congregation. Does that sound like Solomon just pouring out everything that has happened to him and going on in their life? It does, doesn't it? Billy, would you like a glass of water? You have some? Okay. All right. It's only $1, so no problem. So, yeah. He's just telling it as it is. I couldn't have written it any clearer, any better. I mean, you would really have problems misunderstanding this. It's very clear. Don't associate with people like this. Proverbs 6, 20 through 35, echoes of passages from Deuteronomy 6. My son, observe the commandment of your father. Do not forsake the teachings of your mother. Bind them continually on your heart. Tie them around your neck. When you walk about, they will guide you. When you sleep, they will watch over you. When you're awake, they will talk to you. For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching is light. And reproofs for discipline are the way of life, to keep you from the evil woman, from the smooth tongue of the adulteress. Do not desire her beauty in your heart, nor let her capture you with her eyelids. Can't you just see those thick eyelashes? Have you seen these girls now that are putting on these eyelashes that their eyes have just got to be heavy? I would be so sleepy all the time, but they're so beautiful. You look at them and when they bat those eyes at you, yeah, it's alluring, see? He's saying that here. He says, don't let her capture you with her eyelids. For on account of a harlot, one is reduced to a loaf of bread. In other words, I'm going to take all your money. You probably won't even have enough to eat. An adulteress hunts for the precious life. Don't ever go after the weak, insignificant people, the rich and famous. Can a man take fire into his bosom and his clothes not be burned? Or can a man walk on hot coals and his feet not be scorched? So is the one who goes into his neighbor's wife. Whoever touches her will not go unpunished. Men do not despise a thief if he steals to satisfy himself when he's hungry, but when he is found, he must repay sevenfold. He must give all the substance of his house. The one who commits adultery with a woman is lacking sense. He would destroy himself. He who would destroy himself does it. Wounds and disgrace he will find, and his reproach will not be blotted out. For jealousy enrages a man. He will not spare in the day of vengeance. He will not accept any ransom, nor will he be satisfied, though you give many gifts. I like verse 30. It says, men do not despise a thief who steals to satisfy himself when hungry. There's an episode on Andy Griffith where Buddy Ebsen plays a hobo. And he's teaching Opie some things that Sheriff Taylor doesn't like. And Buddy Ebsen goes and he says to Opie, would you like a piece of pie? They're living out by the railroad track. How'd a hobo get a pie? Well, he said, Mrs. Smith down the street left a pie on the windowsill. We're going to enjoy her pie. Opie said, that's not right. Even a child knows. Even a child knows some things are wrong. Well, we feel kind of sorry for people that have to steal to be hungry. But I like verse 31. It's the answer. But when he's found, he must repay sevenfold. He must give account or give all the substance of his house. A poor person gets poorer by continually making mistakes. And Solomon's warning about that very thing. And he happens to put it into a passage that's very similar to Deuteronomy 6. How many of you have read this section before? Have you read this before? It's graphic, isn't it? I mean, it's very plain. And if there's anything our young people in the church need to hear today, this needs to be read from the pulpit. It needs to be read from Bible classes. Our kids need to hear this. Proverbs 22 verse 14, the mouth of an adulteress is a deep pit. He who is cursed of the Lord will fall into it. 23:26, give me your heart, my son, and let your eyes delight in my ways. For a harlot is a deep pit, an adulterous woman is a narrow well. Surely she lurks as a robber and increases the faithless among men. Just increases problems. A man who loves wisdom makes his father glad, but he who keeps company with harlot wastes his money. Proverbs 31:3, do not give your strength to women or your ways to that which destroys kings. How many kings have fallen? If you look at the history of the kings of England and you look at all the stories of wives, even one time didn't get the blessing of, quote, the church at the time, he had one woman just killed. Just kill her. Oh, she's not my wife anymore. She's dead. You killed her though. Oh, it doesn't count. Well, do not give your strength to a woman or your ways to which she destroys kings. It doesn't take long. But you know what the irony of this is? Let me just show you how far we've come in the United States. And I don't think the United States is a lot different morality-wise than many other leaders in the world. But, you know, it used to be when a man, and usually it was a man, we haven't had a female president yet, but a man would go in the office and it was really a package deal, a beautiful wife, a caring wife, a sensitive wife. And then if the man was a womanizer, he wasn't so popular. But then it got to be where it was kind of accepted. And now we don't know what we got. Now we don't know what's going on with our leaders. You see, just little by little by little, the devil is making an impact on our society. And soon, people will not care what lifestyle a person has or runs for political office or something like that. But thank God, there's still words in the Bible that says what elders ought to be, what ministers ought to be, qualifications for deacons. And folks, we're called to be different from the world. Amen? To be different from the world. So we have to be careful. Well, there's dangers of indiscretion. We all know that. This is interesting. As a ring of gold in a swine's snout, so is a beautiful woman who lacks discretion. A ring of gold in a swine's snout. It seems out of place, doesn't it? With a golden ring, 24 karat gold ring. Put that in the snout of an old pig. Pull it around the farm anywhere you want it. It just doesn't seem right, does it? A beautiful woman who lacks discretion is the same way as that. 14:8, the wisdom of the sensible is to understand his way, but the foolishness of fools is deceit. They're deceitful. Wisdom is sensible, understandable. 14:15, the naive believes everything, but the sensible man considers his steps. Think before you act. How many people in this world act and then back up and think? Many people do that. They go through life without processing. The value of character. We're not going to read all these. Watch over your heart with your diligence, for from it flows the springs of life. Watch over your heart with diligence. You know, these pictures that you put together, we didn't spend a lot of time on them, but you guys got the message real quick. Pictures tell the story. And when we see these things, we see them happen in our life. The way of a guilty man is crooked. As for the pure, his conduct is upright. 21:8. Let's go down to the value of righteousness again. The righteous of the blameless will smooth his way, but the wicked will fall by his own wickedness. We would say in our society today, those that do evil will be found out. Is that always true? Those that do evil will be found out. I wonder. There's a lot of things that make me scratch my head in this world, and I don't understand all that. And usually, when someone passes away, they give them a little grace period, and then the dirt starts. You know, I'm not a prophet, not the son of a prophet, but the queen died yesterday. The next several days, you're going to hear a lot of nice things about the queen. Just mark my words. You're going to hear all the accolades. You're going to hear what a great servant for 70 years that she was. You mark my words, in a few days, there's going to be somebody who writes an article and says, but you didn't know the queen the way I knew her. Just be ready for it. It's going to happen. We give people a pass for a little while, but then it comes out in their life. And so we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can. I like to tell people, live your life so that me as your preacher doesn't have to lie about you when I do your funeral. You know? So live your life good. Let's go down to honesty. Better is a poor man who walks in his integrity than he who is perverse in speech and a fool. You know, some people just open their mouth and you can tell how quickly they are a foolish person by their speech, by their actions, the things they do. But a person who is poor, it's better to be poor and walk in integrity than a person who opens his mouth and everybody knows how foolish he is. What is desirable in a man in his kindness? It's better to be a poor man than a liar. Do not weary yourself to gain wealth. Cease from your consideration of it. Better is the poor who walks in integrity than he who is crooked, though he be rich. And then letter D, rather. Concerning gambling, the lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. Proverbs 18, the lot is cast, puts into the end of strife and decides between the mighty ones. He's talking about casting lots here. Those were a lot of things that were done in the Bible days, just exactly like that. Concerning self-control, the desires of someone, the righteous, is only good, but the expectation of the wicked is wrath. Why should we be surprised when wicked people do wicked things and get caught, and then they act all surprised that it happened to them? Why are we shocked at that? Self-control, desires. The desire of the righteous is only good. The expectation of wicked is wrath. He who diligently seeks good seeks favor, but he who seeks evil, evil will come to him. Have you ever heard someone say, trouble follows after them? They just keep getting into trouble. The soul of the wicked desires evil. His neighbor finds no favor in his eyes. The soul of the wicked desires evil, and even the neighbors sense what it is. Finds no favor with him. He's not a good neighbor. You wouldn't believe what they do. See? 21:21. He who pursues righteousness and loyalty finds life, righteousness and honor. So many great things. Now here is a different word. Look at number 2, because we're going to have to hasten. Temperament. The definition in psychology, temperament refers to those aspects of an individual's personality, such as being introverted or extroverted, those that often regarded as an innate rather than learned behavior. So he's talking about here about temperament. A quick-tempered man acts foolishly, and a man of evil devices is hated. You ever been around a person that can just fly off the handle at just the drop of a hat, as we say? How do you act around a person like that normally? Speak to me. How do you handle that? Shock? What? Exactly what I was thinking. Here's what happens in a lot of families. And I'm going to pick on the guys because I are a guy. And sometimes guys have a hot temper. Not that they want to, but sometimes they just do. Comes in and the wife's wondering, which husband's coming in the door today? Where are the eggshells today, honey? Because I don't know where to walk. You see? And then if he's cunning and if he's crafty and he's deceitful, he moves the eggshells around on his wife because she doesn't know how to act around him. And she's got to be docile, she's got to be quiet, she's got to be introverted until she tests the water to see how the man is. And I realize that scenario could be reversed to the point of where a woman treats her husband that way, but probably not all the time. So a man has to be careful and make sure we're being God's man all the time. Let's look at number 3, humility. When pride comes, then comes dishonor, but with the humble comes wisdom. Pride comes, then comes dishonor. Pride can keep us from doing what we know we ought to do. Isn't that true? People hold out on the gospel. I know I need to become a Christian, but there's just something that's keeping me from swallowing my pride, and I can't do it. See? And we have to be careful of that. Proverbs 16:18, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before stumbling. This is the New American Standard Version. Pride goes before a fall is what we would say here. And then 21:4, haughty eyes and a proud heart, the lamp of the wicked is sin. 26:12, do you see a man wise in his own eyes? There is more hope for a fool than for him. Did you read that? A guy that's full of himself, wise in his own eyes. There's more hope for a foolish person than for that man. That says a lot, doesn't it? A man's pride will bring him low, but an humble spirit will obtain honor. If you have been foolish in exalting yourself, or if you have plotted evil, put your hand on your mouth. Isn't that good? Just put it right there. Don't say it. Keep it to yourself. And then along with the mouth, he moves right to the tongue, and we're going to talk about the tongue. He who gives an answer before he hears is folly and shame to him. If we're not careful, we can fall into that trap. Also, it's not good for a person to be without knowledge, and he who hurries his footsteps errs. When there are many words, transgression is unavoidable, but he who restrains his lips is wise. I told you earlier this morning about the brother out in Midland that was an elder, and we'd go to drink a glass of tea in the mornings together, and I learned so much from him and shared with him some things, and he shared with me. But when he spoke, I listened. And sometimes he didn't use many words, but I listened to what he had to say. You've probably all had somebody in your life like that. Oh, she might not say very much, but when she speaks, you really need to listen to what she has to say. That man at church that's so wise, he doesn't say very much, but when he speaks up in class, I really need to listen to him because he's saying something. Those are the kind of people we want to hitch our wagon to and follow along with them because they're so valuable to us. There's a whole list of things here about the tongue, and we know those things. Look at chapter 14, verse 3. In the mouth of the foolish is a rod for his back, but the lips of the wise will protect him. Some people just open their mouth and end up getting in trouble, desirous of having a rod put to their back. In China, they cane people for saying bad things. You know, this is obviously an exaggeration, but how many kids would we have in school today that hadn't been caned? Kids talk back to parents, to teachers all the time. Can't keep their mouth closed. Temperateness, the definition, moderate, self-restrained, not extreme in opinion, statement, a temperate response to an insulting challenge, moderate as regard to indulgence of appetite or passion, especially in the use of alcoholic liquors. Proverbs 25:16, have you found honey? Eat only what you need, that you not have it in excess, and I'm sorry, the scripture, I'm not sorry, it's what it says, and vomit. That you have in excess and vomit. We got a couple of people over here that raise bees. They have honey. Do you know if you sit down and eat 2 coconut pies in one setting, you're going to be sick? I could probably make it through one. No, maybe not. But if you eat too much honey, it's not going to be satisfying. If you have too much of something, it's not going to be good anymore. You have an old dog that gets into something he shouldn't be eating, she shouldn't be eating all the time. You know, you let them eat enough of it, the next time they smell it, they'll turn tail and run. They're smarter than humans. They know what not to do anymore. He's telling us here to be careful. These things, too much. Look at verse 27, it's even clearer. A sated man or a satiated man loathes honey, but to a famished man any bitter thing is sweet. What's he saying here? Let me give you an illustration. You go out to your favorite place to eat, whatever it is, Mexican food, steak, Chinese, whatever, you just fill in the blank. And you don't really have an appetite that night, but you eat a little bit because you're with your family or maybe it's a social event. And then they bring that gorgeous tray around at the end. And they bring it down and they just tilt it over and they make it look so pretty. And tonight we have decadent chocolate cake, key lime pie, cream brulee. Are you following what I'm selling here? And you say, I couldn't eat another thing. I am so full. But what about a man that comes off the street that is starving to death and he says, I'll take anything. You got an old bologna sandwich somewhere? I'll eat it. What's the difference? We have so much, sometimes we don't appreciate the other things. You see what I'm saying? So, a dessert once in a while after a good meal at a restaurant, that's okay. But what if you had that same piece of pie every single time? It might not be as good as it used to be, see? Too much of a good thing is bad. Here is the point in economics. One thing satisfies, the next time it satisfies less. I'll prove this to you. Go home, buy three Musketeers on the way home and eat all 3 of them. The first one's going to be great. The second one, you're going to choke down. The third one, I'm not eating a 3 Musketeer for as long as I live. You see, it doesn't satisfy anymore. It just won't work. That's temperateness. 28:7, he who keeps the law is a discerning son, but he who is a companion of gluttons humiliates his father. Promising certain things with our tongue. It is a trap for a man to say rashly, it is holy, and after the vows to make inquiry. Attitude about being contentious. Proverbs 3, verse 30. Do not contend with a man without cause, if he has done you no harm. Don't contend with a man without cause. Don't argue with somebody just to be arguing. Let me give you, for example. Have you ever come to someone and ask a question and you wanted to say more of a statement than a question? And anytime you ask them that, it doesn't matter if you say red, they're going to say blue. If you say black, they're going to say white. It's just like they want to argue. Does anybody know anybody like that? Yes, we all know somebody like that. Maybe it's that crazy uncle you've got in your family. I don't know. Everybody's got one. But some people just want to be contentious. They just want to argue all of the time. 17:19, he who loves transgression loves strife. He who raises his door seeks destruction. Close the windows, close the doors to those kind of things. Don't let them in. 18:6, a fool's lips bring strife, and his mouth calls for blows. That's how some people, I don't understand it. They go to a Ranger game. They're up there, they paid good money to have a seat. They're watching a game, and somebody mouths off behind them, and the next thing, we've got security coming and taking both parties out of the ball game. How does that happen? Just goes to blows. 20 verse 3, keeping away from strife is an honor for a man, but any fool will quarrel. Drive out the scoffer, and contention will go out. Even strife and dishonor will cease. Like one who takes a dog by the ears, if he who passes by and meddles with strife not belonging to him. You don't just go up in a yard and see a dog out there and go up and grab that dog behind the ears and start rubbing it, because you just might have your hand bitten off. You don't go looking for trouble. How do we go up and address a dog in this world today? How do you address a dog? Hi, sir, is that what you say? No, you put your hand out, you let them smell the top of your hand, and if it starts wagging its little tail, then it's okay to pet it. But if its ears go up and its tail stands up straight, you better back off, see? And he's telling us here, you just don't go up to any old dog and grab it by its ears, because you might have a tiger by the tail. That's what's going to happen. People are like that. Well, companions. We talked about friends. We talked about what happens to human beings. Concerning companions, if they say, come with us, lie in wait for blood, let us ambush the innocent. We read this one this morning, the whole passage. He goes on and says, verse 15, my son, do not walk in the way with them. Keep your feet from their path, for their feet run to evil and hasten to shed blood. Indeed, it's useless to spread the baited net in the sight of any bird, but they lie in wait for their own blood. They ambush their own lives. So are the ways of everyone who gains by violence. It takes away the life of its possessors. Companions. Choose good companions. You can see this in a family. You can see this in a youth group. You can see this with teenagers at school. When a boy or a girl starts being pulled in to a different group they normally run with. There's been movies made about this. Parents will see their children acting different. What's the matter with you? Where are you going? Who are you hanging around with? None of your business, Mama. See? That's a sign right there. None of your business, Daddy. And we know they're not running with the same people. Bad companions. Evil companions, what? Corrupt good morals. Solomon's saying, let me save you a lot of heartache. Choose your friends carefully. Chapter 13:20, and this will be the last one. He who walks with the wise men will be wise, but the companions of fools will suffer harm. Will suffer harm. Choose your friends carefully. I can't tell you how many people I've known in the church over my many years of being in the church, of families that have been pulled away by getting involved with someone that wasn't good for them in their family. It happens. It happens to adults. It happens with teenagers. It can happen very early, and very quietly can it happen, where people are pulled away from doing what they know they ought to do. Well, it's hard to believe. It's 2:35. The day's almost shot. We have one more class, I believe, and the lessons will be yours today. I want to say thanks for coming. And those of you that participated on the posters, you get 25,000 points. Good job. All right. Thanks for coming. If you need a restroom break, water break, feel free. Okay, thanks.